I'm going to take a break from doing the typical hard surface modeling that I usually do and show you how to model this earthworm. And the cool thing about this is that it's very low poly, even though it looks like it has a reasonably complicated geometry. This is actually done with a normal map that we're going to create, and it's really easy. And you can put together a scene something like this if you like, with the dissection tray and the T-pin. I'm not going to do that in this video, but if you let me know in the comments that you're interested in that and you want to see how to do that, the tray and the T-pin, I can do that as well. But here we have another earthworm. Alright, so I'm going to show you how to do that. It's really easy to do. So the first thing that we're going to do is look down from the top, press Shift A, and we're going to add a curve path. And with that, we're just going to create the profile of how we want our worm to look. Now, if you want it to be in the dissection tray, you probably want to keep it kind of flat. So I'll do something like that. And I'll just do, let's do, I don't know, something like this. Maybe we'll lift it up just a little bit here and there. You know, you can do whatever you want, but there's the path for your worm. And if you want it to be a little bit more menacing, you know, you can take the head out. And you can extrude it out and have it do something else crazy like that. Maybe we'll do that for our earthworm. Okay, so we've got that. Our 3D cursor is still there, and there is our path, NURBS path. Okay, now we're going to make the body of the earthworm. To do that, we're going to bring in a cylinder. We're going to use something like, I don't know, 24 vertices. Probably don't even need that much. Switch this to nothing, go in and rotate Y90 and scale it all down pretty small. Scale it like that, and then scale that in the X. And we're going to shade smooth that. And we're going to need to UV unwrap this, so may as well do that right now, real simple. Go Control 7 to look from the bottom, go into edit mode and find the center edge, this one here, press 2. Edge and just Control E, mark seam, A, U, unwrap. Now we'll come back to that in a bit. Okay, let's look from the front again. Now we're going to add an array in the X. Click on merge and make this something like, we'll start with 75 segments long. I'm going to make this follow the path. So add another curve and choose your path, and there it is. So you can bring it up. I'm not going to bring it to the very end. I want to be able to select that really easily right here, but we can do something like that. Now you need to come into the path, and I'm going to select those 2 points and subdivide, and then make sure that one's selected and go Alt S and pull. I can change the size of that, so I'm just going to Alt S. This is the anterior or front end of the worm. Make that a bit bigger. Down here, I'm going to select and subdivide that. Take this one, Alt S, and I'm going to make it smaller, like that. Something like that. Okay, I'm going to take this point and I'm going to extrude it a bit further. And take this one and Alt S and make it smaller. And what I might need to do is move this along or add more segments like that. I'm just going to pull this back a little bit, and then I'll cap that off later on. So it looks a little bit like a tadpole at this point. Come back in, and Alt S, and just get the dimensions that you want. Now, we're going to put the texture on this. First of all, I'm going to come up here, I'm going to create a new material, and I'm going to call this skin. And that's going to be the material for it. Okay, here we go. I'm going to press Shift A, mesh plane, scale it down, and just move it out of the way. And just bring it up to there. Now I'm going to go in and put one edge loop and Control B, pull, something like this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to extrude it up a nice distance. Press 3, and we're going to select these faces and delete them. So I have this. Then I'm going to bevel this by hand. I'm going to select those 2 edges, Control B and pull, and give it a nice bunch of segments in there. Doesn't even matter how many. Just make it look like that and shade smooth. Click down from the top. So we have this. Okay. Go in, Shift S, cursor selected, bring the 3D cursor there. Now we're going to bring a camera right to there. So Shift A, camera, and while we're still there, I'm going to press Control Alt 0 to look through the camera right at it. Now we're going to make a normal map out of this, so we're going to have to do a couple of adjustments. I'm going to come over here first of all, and I'm going to turn on ambient occlusion, bloom, screen space reflections. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom to color management, and I'm going to switch this to standard. I'm also going to click on the camera, switch this to orthographic, and then I'm going to, just before I move in there, come over here, change this to 1024 by 1024. Okay, back to the camera, and I'm going to pull this to the left as I zoom in like this. I'm going to scroll out a little bit, keep doing this, scroll out, and now I'm a little bit off, so I'm going to press G for the camera and just move so it's like this. So I've got that much of it. All right. Okay, good. So now come up here, switch to matte cap, and choose this one here. So it looks like a normal map. Turn off everything else and go to View, Viewport Render Image, and there is your normal map. Now save that. All right, you can now close that, turn these back on, switch back to studio. You can put cavity on if you want. Press what is it, 0 to get out of camera mode. We don't need that anymore. We'll leave it there for now. All right, we're going to select and go into the shading tab and make sure we're on here, this material preview or look dev or whatever. Okay, so here's our skin material. All right, I'm going to Shift A, texture, image texture, put that down, and then with it selected, go Control T. I think you need the node wrangler enabled to do that. That's going to bring down this texture coordinate mapping node. We want UV going in. All right, I'm going to open that image we just saved. So normal map video, that's what I called it. All right, we're going to switch this to non-color data, and I'm going to bring it down a little ways so that we're going to connect that over to the normal here. So Shift A, we need a converter, no, vector, normal map, put that down, connect the color to the color, and then the normal to the normal. And we should start seeing something. However, we haven't adjusted our UV, so you can see a little bit there. So come over to UV editing, and we will make an adjustment here. Let's switch over to material preview, press the period key to zoom in, and you can see here is our UV unwrap, but here's our image. So I'm going to select this. G, I'm just going to drag it into the middle. I'm going to scale it down just a little bit, put it in the middle, and now scale in the X, and you can start to see it appearing over here. All right, so you just scale it in the X until you like it. Now don't go too much. You start getting that line, pull it in until you just have those sort of depressions there. Something like that. Let's go back to shading. Okay, now, if you don't like how those segments are, if they look too small to you, whatever, let's come back to layout. You can go in, select this, and you can scale in the X, and you can get more space. The only thing is that will push you'll push it like this. So now you can come back here and you can reduce the number of segments in your array, which is great, because now let's polish and go to about there. All right, so that's looking okay. So now we just have to do some work in the shading tab itself. Come up here, first of all, I'm going to change the base color. So get sort of a brownish pink color. We'll start with that, and then let's also look at this subsurface stuff. I'm going to change the subsurface radius here I'm going to change that to 2, and I'm going to change the color to red, and then I'm going to start scrolling this, and the red's starting to come through. And then you can come back to here and play with whatever color you want it to be. You know, it's starting to look a little bit better, a little bit more like an earthworm. Okay, next thing, let's say this, let's just move it. We're gonna copy this stuff. Let's Shift D. So Shift D and duplicate that up. Well, we're gonna switch this to object, and we're gonna come in here and we are gonna add a texture noise, a noise texture. Connect that, and we'll leave this at 5, and I'll bring the detail up to maybe about 10, and this maybe about 0.7, and then we're going to have a color ramp. Connect that in, and I'm going to pinch these in a little bit, and let's try making this one a gray like this. And this one, maybe we'll try a slightly darker gray, and we'll try that. And we're going to plug that into the roughness. All right, so that's going to come into the roughness. And now it's starting to look a little bit more like skin. This is going to really depend on the lighting as well. I'll put lights in there in a minute, and so you can see what's happening here. I kind of like that one, but we really don't need that stuff anymore. We're done with that. So we've got that. Let's turn on, by the way, the statistics and see. So we're only at like almost 3,000 tries for this earthworm. We might even be able to get it down. Let's add a couple of lights here. And we're not done with that material yet. I'm going to pull that out, and I'm going to make this an orange color, and I'm going to bring that up to about 80. Maybe 60. And I'm going to take another one, Shift D and G, and I'm going to bring it over here, and I'm going to make this blue. Bring it up a bit. Let's just get some different kind of colors bouncing off that thing. Let's go back into the shading tab and do a bit more here. Let's pull that back, and let's add a vector bump. And let's take this out and plug it into the normal. Let's plug this into the height. And let's change this to, we'll start with 0.3. And we'll plug this into the normal. And now we have some bump there, and you can decide if that's too much or too little for you. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and select maybe that point and bring the 3D cursor there. And I'm going to add another cylinder. I'll leave it at the 24. I'll scale it down. I'm going to rotate Y 90. And I can adjust all this in a little bit. I'm going to do something with these ends. I think I'm going to cap them off. And then in face selection, I'm going to select them both, and I'm going to bevel them like this. Nice big bevel, pretty round, and then add some segments in here like that. All right, so I've got that. I'll shade smooth. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pair that now to the curve. And I'm going to pull it up. I'm going to take my earthworm now, because I'm relatively happy with that. And I'm going to apply the array and the curve. I'm going to bring this up now. I'm going to come into the curve, and I'm going to Alt S. I'm going to change the size of that. What I'm making now is the part that will create the cocoon. It's called the clitellum. And I'm going to get the size that I want, slide it down a bit. I can scale it over here a little bit. scale it in the X, a little bit longer. It's actually pretty good. It's close to the anterior end of the worm. Okay, so I'm going to take that now, and I'm going to put on skin, and you can see I've got that there. Now I haven't UV unwrapped this, but it's using the same thing, and it's got those, so I don't want that. So I'm going to do is come over to the shading tab, click here, and I'm going to call this clitellum. All right, so that's that part. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to unhook the part with the rings. Now if I want, I can change the color of this, because it often does change. It's often a more orangey color when they're ready to mate. So you put that there, and I can do anything I want over here. I want a little bit more shiny. Okay, something like that. So we've got that piece on there as well. And then if you want, you can close up the worm. Now we're really done with that curve, so we can go ahead and we can apply that curve modifier. We can get rid of the curve. And then you can come in, and what I would probably do is Shift D, duplicate it. I'll pull it out a little bit, P to separate it. And I'm going to put on just the skin, the clitellum material, so it doesn't have any of the folds. I'll just pull it out a little bit, maybe in, F, cap it off. I'll probably go back to the skin material actually. Maybe I'll bevel that. And then take this edge, scale it in, take the whole thing and try to push it in there for the front of the worm, the prostomium. I think I actually would like to change the color of that, so I think I will go back, and maybe what I'll do is I'll take this skin and grab that hex, and then come back to the clitellum. Maybe I'll put that back in there, so it looks like that. And you can do the same thing with the tail part as well. And as you can see, we're not up very high in the polys. Now let's try coming over here. See if I add a decimate. 0.8, I could do that. I brought it down. Still okay. Now we're down to just to that, and then once I'm happy, I can take the whole thing and I can just join it together, and I have my earthworm. Okay, all a normal map. Cool. All right, so that's how I created this earthworm here, as you can see, and this earthworm as well. Just has a little bit less noise on it. So something a little bit different, but hopefully useful.